Hi, I'm a higher ed CMO and I have a confession to make. If I did not have a creative outlet, I think that I would not be able to do the job that I do. I think I would be completely overwhelmed by the stress of the day, and I would not have a way to disengage my brain and focus on something different. I'm really thrilled to be talking to Kristi McLennan today about how she carves out time for her creative practice. If you can believe it, she carves out an hour every single day, and how she has identified some of those creative outlets that she wants to pursue. And hopefully this episode inspires you to find something that feeds your soul creatively and to find time to take up that creative practice. Because I think it's really, really important for us to be exceptional marketers. Welcome to Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO, the podcast designed for higher education marketers. I'm your host, Jaime Hunt, and I am so excited to have this opportunity to share insights and inspiration. With Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO, I'm designing a different kind of podcasting experience. With each episode, I'll be bringing in a guest for a deep dive into the challenges and joys we all face in higher education marketing. After each episode, you can join the conversation on Twitter by using the hashtag HigherEdCMO. I would love to see this become like a book club, but for a podcast. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at JamieHuntIMC. That's JamieHuntIMC for more opportunities to connect. I'm so excited to have with me today Kristi Eaves-McLennan, who is the Vice President of Communications and Marketing at Meredith College. Welcome, Kristi. How are you?
Thank you, Jaime, so much for having me on the show. I'm doing great, and I'm such a fan of the podcast, so I can't believe I'm actually here as a guest.
I'm so happy to have you on. I've been following you on Twitter for a while and on LinkedIn for a while, and I always enjoy your tweets and everything you have to say. And I'm really excited to dig into the topic of creativity and how your outside creativity can fuel your work life and vice versa. But before we get started on that conversation, can you tell us a little bit about your higher ed journey?
Yeah, I actually got started in higher ed communications as an intern in the communications office at the university that I went to, and really realized that could be a career path. And after a short stint in nonprofit marketing and communications, I found my way to higher ed and have been there for the last 22 years. Most of that in my current institution, Meredith College.
That's awesome. How did you make that decision so early? Was it like being in that office as an intern? Was that just coincidence that you landed in that internship, or did you seek that out thinking you wanted to work in higher ed communications?
It was a little bit of a coincidence. I knew I wanted to major in communications, and knew the director of communications there, and we got to talking one day and realized that there might be an internship opportunity to work with somebody that I just admired. Hadn't necessarily thought about working at an institution, just wanted to work with somebody I knew I could learn from, and realize, this is a job. People make careers out of this. It's more than just a fun internship at a place I already knew that I liked. So that's a little bit about how that came about.
I remember being in college and sitting on the mall at the University of Minnesota, which is where I got my undergraduate degree, and thinking, I wish I could have a job at a university. And it didn't even occur to me that that was a thing you could do besides being a professor. Like, you're a professor or you're a student, and that's all that there really was at universities, which is so bizarre because you're interacting all the time with non-faculty staff. But it just seemed like this totally abstract notion of a career that you could have on a college campus without being a professor.
Yeah, I kind of was similar to you in thinking that there was only two things that you could do, be a professor or a student. And my parents have joked that I have found a way to be a perpetual student by working in higher ed for pretty much my whole career.
Once I started working in higher ed, it was like, why would I want to work anywhere else? Now, during COVID, I thought of a lot of reasons why I wanted to work anywhere else, but it's such a great place to work.
Yeah, I love that learning is part of what we do every day. You know, it's part of our jobs to go to guest speakers and meet these fascinating people and help students figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life. So it is very rewarding.
So recently you tweeted about your goal to spend an hour a day creating. And that just was like, yes, that resonated with me so much. I have a personal goal to paint 50 paintings over the course of the next year. And so I just loved this idea of spending an hour a day creating. Tell me a little bit about why that's important to you.
I have a tendency, like many people probably, to spend a lot of time in my own head. And when I am doing something creative, it forces me to be in the moment and also to take more risk. I think as we get older, get a little bit more set in our careers, we can forget about the need, to take risks, get a little, set in our ways. And marketing is a field that you need to be constantly innovating. So, spending some time focusing on that creative side really helps me do all of that.
I tell people that painting or photography or whatever, like your whole brain has to be engaged in it. So you cannot be stressed about work when you're doing it because you don't have any brain power left to expend on that. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, photography is one of the things that I dabble in, landscape photography, and you really can't be thinking about that issue at work, the positions you might need to fill or, the crisis of the day when you are standing on the side of a cliff trying to, capture, some wildlife or, adjust your settings to, get a sunrise. You have to be totally in the moment. Otherwise you'll miss it or hurt yourself.
And hurting yourself is less than ideal. I think
exactly.
We can agree. When I was at Radford University about 10 years ago now, my husband and I actually opened a photography studio, and it was just such a great way to see different people, to interact with different people, to be in a different headspace. But it was a little bit stressful because we ran it as a business, and it was there's this tendency to always want to monetize your side hustle. For your creative outlets, are those purely for you, or are you monetizing those? Are you trying to make money off of your creative pursuits?
I'm trying to make a little bit of money, just enough to be able to afford to upgrade the equipment every once in a while. That's really what I'm trying to do. I'm not, trying to make a second career or, earn significant, supplemental income out of it. But, it'd be nice, to make a few $100s so I could upgrade my lens.
And photography equipment is very expensive.
Yes.
So what are your creative outlets? You've mentioned photography, but before we started, you also mentioned writing. So tell me a little bit about what you pursue creatively.
Writing, I'm really more of a short story writer. I've never been one of those writers that thought, oh, I've got all these books, in me. I like to tell stories either through personal essays or, just short story format. Also photography, mostly landscape. I really admire that you did some portrait photography. That takes a completely different skill set and really scares me to think about doing that. And I do some blogging as well.
Oh, cool. What do you have a favorite, or do you find that they're all just equally important to you?
They're really important in different ways. I mean, writing has been a constant throughout my life. I mean, even as an elementary school kid, it's something that I did for fun, journaled, or, we probably all had the assignment of where you had to write sentences from your spelling words. I wrote stories with recurring, characters, each week. So that's just been something that's always been an outlet and important to me. Photography has been a little bit more recent. It's something that I started to do more in 2019 when I was out one day and just noticed I was out at a strip mall waiting for my husband to pick up some dinner, bring it out, and I noticed a gorgeous sunset and had my cell phone with me and got a great shot. And I thought, let's see if you can develop this a little bit more. So it has been something that I've really enjoyed, just figuring out more about how to do.
I feel like photography has that art and science element to it too. It's like that marketing has, like you have the science of like aperture and focal length and everything like that, but you also have like the art of it, which I think marketing has too. I think it's a fantastic hobby.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right that there are some parallels there.
Yeah, I guess you could probably say that's true for a lot of artistic pursuits. I think a lot of people think of, music is artistic, but it's also about math. The beats and all of that. There's a lot to be learned, I think, in life from hobbies. Probably, my confession probably should have been that I have a novel that's been sitting for 5 years waiting for me to come back to it and edit and do something with it. I find writing to be the hobby that I struggle with the most because I do so much of it in my day-to-day job. Do you have any issues with switching your brain from, creative fiction to marketing style writing?
At this point in my job, I feel like the most interesting thing that I'm writing are emails on a daily basis, especially, like you said, we've been coming off COVID, and, that's what I felt like I did on a day-to-day basis. I sent out campus-wide emails of here are the guidelines, for today. So I'm happy to shut that off to be able to focus on more creative. I do struggle a little bit with the more creative writing to sometimes come up with the idea. Once I come up with the idea and direction, I can go from there. But that's a little bit more of the challenge for me, not the switching back and forth.
I would love to hear why you think it's important for marketing leaders like you and I both, CMOs, but even, anybody in marketing to have a creative outlet.
Well, I don't think it's unique to marketing leaders. I think it's a good idea for any leader to develop a creative habit. But specific to marketing leaders, I think most of us were drawn to the field because we enjoy connecting with people. We like to inspire, or we enjoy telling a story. And I think creative outlets give you another way to express those things and feed those desires.
Hey all, I hope you're enjoying this episode of Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO. I want to take a moment to thank my friends at Mindpower who are making Season 2 of this Enrollify podcast possible. Mindpower is a full-service marketing and branding firm celebrating nearly 30 years of needle-moving, thought-provoking, research-fueled creative and strategy. Mindpower is woman-founded and owned, WBENC certified, nationally recognized, and serves the social sector, higher education, healthcare, nonprofits, and more. The Mindpower team is made up of strategists, storytellers, and experienced creators. From market research to brand campaigns to recruitment to fundraising, the agency exists to empower clients, amplify brands, and help institutions find a strategic way forward. You can learn more about their work in the world by heading on over to Mindpower Inc. That's MindPowerinc.com. And be sure to tell the crew that Jamie sent you their way. Yeah, like it triggers different part of your brain or something when you're doing it, that you can bring that lens to your day-to-day work. I think that's really a special thing about creative outlets. And I'm curious about how you find time. An hour a day dedicated to creativity, well, that doesn't sound like a lot, in the whole scheme of a job and getting ready for work and doing your hair and, driving and commuting and all of that. How do you carve out the time to dedicate an hour a day to it?
Well, it is definitely a work in progress. I am an early riser, not by choice. That's just my body has decided that
I hate
4
that.
a.m. is now the time I get up. So I do a lot of it before work,
Mm.
which is part of why I'm like, okay, let's go photograph the sunrise because you're awake. You might as well see
Yeah.
this wonder that unfolds in the sky every day and capture it. So that's one way. I also do it a lot on the weekends, but I mentioned it's a work in progress. I haven't hit the hour every day that I've tried to do it, and I've realized that I think it's more important to make it a daily habit instead of just doing it in spurts. Spending a lot of time on the weekends. It's more important to make a daily habit and focus less on did I hit the hour? Well, did I get 20 minutes? Maybe we can hit an average of an hour and work up to the hour. So that's my
Yeah,
confession.
I love that. I think that there's something to be said about doing it before work too, because a lot of times, I don't know about you, but when I get home at the end of the day, I'm feeling kind of drained. I just want to have like dinner and maybe unwind with a glass of wine or something. And some days I feel like going up to we have a art studio in our house, going up into that space and creating. But some days I just want to sit on the couch and like, I'm embarrassed to say it, like spend an hour on TikTok. That's probably not the best use of my time, but because I'm so worn out at the end of the day, that's what I end up doing.
Yeah, similar. I think I'm so much better doing it early in the morning. I'm fresher. I haven't gotten drained, from the day. I mean, occasionally, like you said, you'll sometimes go up to your studio. Occasionally, I'll jot down an idea or I'll edit some pictures, so I'm not necessarily, it's still part of the creative process, but it's not, creating something completely new, but I'm much more inspired if I do it first thing in the morning.
I have to ask, do you have kids?
I do. I have a daughter.
So you're managing to do all of this and parent at the same time.
Well, it's my daughter did just go to college as a first year student, and I think that is part of why the last few years I have been investing a little bit more time that would give me something to do as an empty nester.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I always say when people say, I don't know how you have time to do all the things that you do, I always sort of say, well, I don't have kids because I know that kids can be, I mean, obviously kids are a big time investment and you want to spend time with your kids and you want to nurture your kids and help them grow and become, wonderful human beings that they're destined to be. So I always felt like I have more time because of that. But I love hearing that you've been able to carve a creative practice out even before your daughter went off to college. And I think it's good for kids to see that. How do you feel about that?
I agree. I think it's good for them to see and also sometimes to be a part of. When I go out and take pictures, a lot of times my husband, my daughter, and our dog come along, so it's a
That's
family
awesome.
affair. So, they're really, watching and they're involved in the process. They're helping me pick locations. So it can be bonding time as well. And like you said, it I think helps teach them that it's important to carve out time for yourself and to feed your passions and that you're more than just your job.
Mm. Speaking of, your job, in what ways do you think having a creative practice makes you better at your job?
I think, well, a lot of the things that I spend my creative time doing are, related to marketing, to the things that we oversee. So I think it gives me a respect for the work. We oversee designers, photographers, writers as the chief marketing officers, and it gives me a respect for how much time and energy and effort can go into writing a story or getting that perfectly lit photograph, building a website, I'm not nearly as talented as any of the folks that I supervise in any of those things, but it gives me a greater appreciation for how much true talent, that they have, and how much time that it takes. So I think that's one thing. And I think it also, creativity breeds creativity. We've all heard that phrase. I don't know exactly, who originated that quote, but I think there's some truth to it. We really spend a lot of our time as marketers trying to cut through the clutter and find new ways to get people's attention. So spending time on your own just for the pursuit of creativity is going to spark that idea or ideas that you need to, to cut through the clutter and get and connect with your audience.
And I think there's a lot to be said about what you mentioned about having a greater appreciation for what your staff has to do. I mean, understanding how much effort it takes to light a really great environmental portrait means that I don't say to somebody, can you just pop on over to so-and-so's office and get a quick picture of them? I know what goes into that and the planning that goes into that. And it's also, I think, benefited every photographer that has worked for me, because I'm always like, oh, no, we do need to invest in the equipment. And a lot of times they're like, I'm using my own personal camera because the institution camera is 10 years old and it's just not up to snuff for me anymore. Like, no, go get the B&H catalog and pick out exactly what you want. Like, no budget, budget's the limit. I think that's been beneficial for them, for sure.
Yeah, I notice it most with the blogging, how hard it is to, build web pages. And it's
Right.
something that, it would take me days to figure out. Like, I know the people that I work with, could turn this out in just a few minutes, so it just gives me an appreciation for all of the knowledge and experience that they have.
Yeah. Frankly, when I was the director of web communications, I would have done that job for free because I loved building websites so much. But I also know, what's involved in that. And honestly, if I could have a hobby of building websites, that would be like but I don't think that's like a normal hobby. I'm just going to build a bunch of websites for nothing. I'm going to have a fake restaurant that I build a website for or something. Are there ways that you think that your job helps you be better at your creative outlet?
I mean, I certainly love what I do, so I think that, being around, I have an opportunity to be around creatives in what I do. So I think that helps me be better at my creative pursuits, just being around people who are artists themselves. I think that's one way that it helps, but I'll have to ponder that one a little bit more.
In a lot of ways, I think about just the rapport that I've been able to build with some of the photographers and videographers that have worked for me, to be able to have conversations with them at work that then I can apply to my photography at home. Or, I've had staff who've been artists that we can kind of talk about that a little bit. But to think about how being a marketing leader makes me more creative, I guess I've never really thought about that either. When I pose these questions, they're tricky for you, but not always tricky for me. That's the trick. But I do think that the skills that we get as executives help us in so many ways that we don't even know about. The skills that we have to use on a daily basis to navigate relationships and to negotiate with people and to compromise with people and all of that, all of that is very, very helpful in your personal life. And I'm not sure everybody thinks about that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the experience of, being a manager over the years has made me a better parent. And yes, so yeah, definitely our experiences as executives bleed over into other aspects of our life.
I think about, from that perspective, this is very tangential to our topic, but, when my father was dying of cancer, I kind of moved back home with my mom for a while to help take care of him, and navigating the healthcare system and navigating my parents' relationship with each other, because they'd been together since my mom was in high school, and she was really struggling with a lot of things and a lot of emotions, and so was he. And being able to keep that poker face that we learn how to have, in executive settings and all of that, I don't think I would have been as good a daughter without having been an executive. And I don't think I would have been able to help them as much without having that experience.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think it has helped me become a better daughter. I don't know that I can articulate it, but I feel like it's there.
So much about what we do is relational. So I guess it makes sense that we're better at relationships because we're able to be, or because we're forced to be really super, super relational in our jobs.
Yes, we're working with all different kinds of people and have to find a way to connect and motivate and inspire, like you said, negotiate.
Is this like a New Year's resolution for 2023 to have this hour of time a day dedicated to creativity?
Yes, it was a New Year's resolution. I had been over the last couple of years, trying to carve out time to do it, and it was really with New Year's that I thought, okay, how can I make this a daily practice instead of doing it in chunks, on spending a lot of time on vacations. I was finding that I was doing that during my time off, and wanted to integrate it more into my daily life.
Have you been using any tools to help manage your time or help identify ways you can carve out time?
Identifying ways to carve out time is something that I would have done better if I had thought about that ahead of time. If I had thought about what is an hour's worth of stuff I can give up to in order to make space for this. So that would be a lesson or advice for others that are considering doing this. But in terms of what do I use to help manage my time, or track some of this, I find the Google suite of products a great way to do it. I mean, blocking off time on my calendar. I block off an hour during the workday of focus time. That's not where I'm doing my creative pursuits, but it does help me make sure that work doesn't spill over by having that flexible time. And also Google Tasks, Google Docs, to track things, to record what I'm learning from doing the creative, keeping track of how much time I'm spending, the different types, what I'm learning from it.
Do you journal or anything?
I do. I'm not super organized about it. I tend to write in whatever is available. If it is my phone, jot down a note. I have stacks of journals. It seems like we get some kind of notebook every conference that we go to.
Yes.
So I have a stack of those. Where I pick up and write, and it might be a different one the next time. So there's not a lot of linear, to it. But yes, I'm a journaler.
Yeah, you mentioned like making note of what you learned from an experience. That's kind of what triggered for me. Like if you're kind of journaling about your practice or journaling about the things that happen to you in life or journaling about your work, I'm not a journaler. So I'm like super, super interested in people who do that practice.
Yeah, I find that I can look back over it and see, oh, okay, just learn from, keeping notes about what I've done. I mean, anytime, throughout my life that I've, lost weight is because I've, journaled about it, or, changed a bad habit, or, broken through on something that I was really struggling with. It's because I journaled about it and could go back and look at the patterns and really reflect on how I was feeling in the moment and how I might have changed or grown, or what I've learned. And that's been something that I've done since I was a kid as well.
Oh wow, I've always admired people who have that as a practice. And talking a little bit about the carving out of time for people who maybe don't have the kind of schedules that maybe us at the the chief marketing officer level have, maybe you have a little bit more cushion in your schedule. I used to work, someone used to work for me who blocked out from noon to 1 every single lunch hour. He brought his lunch, he closed his door, and he worked on his novel for an hour every single day. And that was untouchable time. He did not, when we're all like, we're going all out to somebody's birthday or something, we couldn't budge him. He was going to spend that hour a day working on his book. And I encourage people who can carve out that lunch hour as a creative time to do that. Like, that's a really great built-in way where you might have gone and instead, you know, sat on TikTok for an hour or done something less productive. I think there's opportunity there for people to use that time.
Yeah, that is a great way to fit it in, regardless of what level you are. Everybody gets a lunch hour, right? And so many of us are guilty of, you know, working through lunch or having lunch at our desk. And, you know, so to carve out that time and spend it on a creative pursuit, that is an excellent suggestion.
Yeah, I think that, or if maybe you're not interested in pursuing a creative pursuit, but you want to get an hour of reflection time where you can journal, or maybe it's something where you want to go for a walk at lunch every day or something like that. But to really maximize that lunch hour, for me, I often use it actually so that I don't have to stay as late in the evening to get things done. So I often use it as like this is the time where I'm going to just plow through as many to-do items on my checklist to kind of get so that I'm more able to leave at a decent time. Or I usually, for me, my husband and I are committed to having dinner together every night and not to have this, like, I work so late that I'm just eating a microwave meal when I get home. And so, you know, sometimes I bring my laptop home and then open it up again after dinner. But for me, making the most use of that lunch hour as I can to be able to have a bigger chunk of free time in the evening is how I use it.
Yeah, creating some time elsewhere for something that's important for you.
I think if I were going to try to carve out an hour, I'd cut my hair at this point, because that's having to like style my hair every morning is something I could probably shave off of. That was not a pun that was intended, but I will go ahead and pretend it was. So do you have any recommendation for listeners as people think about pursuing a creative outlet or carving out time to pursue a creative outlet?
I think you've given a great one of using your lunchtime. I think you can combine it with other things. I mean, you mentioned, you know, going for a walk. A lot of times, you know, I will go for a walk and take my cell phone with me and, you know, snap pictures along the way, you know, so that is creativity in a different way. Okay, how can I find something to take photos of, you know, on the same walk that I take every day or, you know, or pretty regularly. So, you know, challenging yourself to find ways to fit it in around something else that you might be doing is one thing. And if another thought that comes to mind, if you want to pursue something creative, but you're not sure what you want to do, you know, just think back to what you loved and enjoyed as a child. You know, we all probably could spend hours, you know, playing or experimenting as kids. And, you know, so think back to what did you love? There's your answer of the first thing that you should try to do as you explore your creativity.
You mentioned earlier writing as a school-age kid, and that reminded me that I found a notebook of stories I had written as a school-age kid, and I just had to share this, and this maybe should have been my confession, but I had one story where the protagonist was a girl who had lost her leg from the knee to the ankle in a tragic accident. And I'm just picturing, like, did she still have her foot attached to her thigh? Like, what was 7-year-old me thinking when she wrote that story? But yeah, hopefully I'm a better writer today.
I had the same visual. I'm like, okay, how would you illustrate that?
Right.
That might be my next creative challenge.
Right. I think I basically wrote The Horse Whisperer at 7 because, like, a horse, you know, was like what what made her, overcome this debilitating shin vacancy that she had. But yeah, I mean, I love that idea of looking back at what gave you joy when you were a kid or when you were younger, and revisiting some of that. I love that idea. And when you talked about like discovering photography in this moment of a beautiful sunset, or there's serendipity that can put something across your vision or whatever, that you can suddenly have a deep investment in and great enjoyment from. And don't be afraid about being 60 years old and taking up a new hobby. Like that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to try something completely new, too. I mean, one of the things I've done is I took a stained glass making class. Thought I was always intrigued by how pretty they were, and I realized that is not my hobby. That is not my creative. They're beautiful. They're too precise for the kind of creativity that some people are great. That's right up their alley, and I'm a little better at creative pursuits where you can backspace and start over, or you can edit or crop and make it better, and you can't do that with something like stained glass. Another thing that I did that was creative and completely outside my box, I took an improv comedy class, and anybody who knows me, that is like the last thing. I'm very introverted, used to really be afraid of doing any kind of public speaking. So this was really outside of my box, and it was a lot of fun to do and explore that side of me that I never knew that was there.
I have always wanted to do like a stand-up comedy class, but I have the same sort of like, but I don't want anyone to watch me do a stand-up comedy class. I'm impressed that you had the courage to do that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll do it again, but I am glad that I had that experience of doing it. It really helped me become a better speaker and just be more in the moment. I mean, when you're doing improv, you don't know what's coming at you, and it's just you and the other person on the stage, so it teaches you a lot about teamwork. There is so much that I learned from doing that experience, but I'm with you. You're not gonna, see me perform it on Whose Line Is It Anyway after taking that class. Nobody except for the people in the class got to see me do it.
I like the idea of that as a creative outlet, though, like thinking about non-traditional options for your creative outlet, whether it's comedy or, writing music or poetry or whatever. There's so many different ways that you can feed your creative soul. And I hadn't really thought about improv, but as you're saying it, like, you're going to have to think on your feet, and you're going to have to come up with the best comedy is creative. It's stuff people haven't thought of before, putting new ideas together. Like, I love that as a creative outlet.
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot of creativity involved in
that sort of yes
improv.
And, right?
Exactly. Yeah, build on whatever is, presented to you, or, just whatever the audience throws out at you. Okay, how do we make this funny?
Yeah.
Writing composing puns. A lot of times improv, there's a lot of pun in it. That's creative, coming up with those things right on the spot.
Yeah, I love that. Do you encourage your staff to have creative outlets?
I really try to, and honestly, most of them, come to us, come to the position having a creative outlet, and I encourage them to foster it. And it's also been interesting to me whenever we have team time, when we come together for a retreat or a holiday event, it usually has some kind of creative element to it. We have gone and toured an art museum and spent time drawing or sketching. We've spent time at team meetings, taking Play-Doh and everybody making something out of whatever two colors you were assigned, and it was fascinating to see the different approaches that people took to that. I'll never forget, our web developer at the time, he made a pizza out of his, and it was the most technically correct looking pizza out of, it wasn't necessarily artistic, but it was very precise, looking like, so you learn about each other. Our most recent holiday event, we sat there and colored together. We've taken advantage of the fact that we have art studios on campus and had a art professor teach us all how to make a piece of clay. We made little trivets, out of clay and learned how to stamp them, so we just tend to gravitate towards that as a team. And it's been a way to both feed our work and learn a lot more about each other and just have some fun, which is important at work, especially these days.
Absolutely. You've really inspired me because I have talked about in previous roles doing like a paint night or making pottery or something, but to tap into faculty members' expertise or your art department's expertise, or, probably a lot of campuses have improv, classes that you can take together as a team. But giving everybody that creative outlet, I think that is something I'm definitely going to incorporate into my next staff retreat.
And I really can't take a lot of credit for that. A lot of times our design team and, some of the staff members are the ones saying, hey, can we try this, for our team meeting? So it's really come from them.
I love that. I have somebody on my team right now who is an amazing calligrapher. She's actually contracted to write a book about how to do calligraphy. And maybe she could, teach a class on how to do like the basics of what she does or something to give us, a flavor of what she does in her spare time, but also like gives us an appreciation for what goes into her creative practice or something.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It just made me think about our director of events is an excellent knitter. I need to get him to, give a class on teaching us some basic knitting, and I think that serves a great purpose to have somebody within the team, teach the rest of their colleagues how to do something, like calligraphy or knitting. Gives them a chance to show their leadership skills in a different way.
When I was at UW Oshkosh, 15 years ago, they actually used to have for staff one day a year where you could sign up to teach a class to other staff members. It was like a staff appreciation type thing. So you could say, I want to teach a yoga class, or I want to teach a creative writing class or something. And you talking about that made me realize like that's something that I could potentially bring to the institution that I'm at and recommend, that we have something like that in the summer. It was always in the summer, the faculty are all gone and it's like, let's learn from each other while the faculty are away kind of a thing.
Yeah, I really like that. And, and sometimes having your staff, teach the faculty too, it's a great way to build new relationships.
Yeah, and there's so many talented people on our campuses, like so many people who have amazing side hustles and creative outlets, and being able to tap into that. And I don't know about you, but when I get started talking about things I'm passionate about that are outside of work, like you just get animated, excited, and people see you in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. They see that passion that's there, and like you said, your whole demeanor can change, and it gives you something to connect on later. I have one colleague that, once she found out that I do some book blogging, we talk about books, all the time and share, recommendations, and it's just given us a different way to, to bond with each other, which is really valuable.
I want to double down on that book thing. The last two institutions that I was at, we had book clubs where we read books and discussed them together. And I remember I did it when I first got to Miami, and I had all ranges of staff in this book club. And I remember somebody who was like several layers below me on the org chart saying, this let me see you as a leader in a totally different way, because you're talking about something that's just not telling us what to do or trying to inspire us or whatever. It's just was like a totally different conversation. And she felt that her relationship with me was deeper because she'd had that experience with me. And I bet that, along with kind of what you're talking about with those opportunities to be creative together, probably give that same sort of opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. And, we've done something similar with, and again, this wasn't my idea. Our design team came up with, let's discuss a book. It was Design as Storytelling by Ellen Lupton. Let's, read a chapter each week and do some of the exercises and get together as a team, make this weekly commitment to talk about it. And it really did let me see some of them in a different way, to, hear their take on the exercises in the book, and let them see me, let my hair down, and, to keep with the hair analogy, in a different, and see me in a different light too, that, I'm human, just like them, and feel like I can learn just as much from them. It's not always I have to have the answers.
It can be very lonely at the VP level. People generally, the people that are kind of below you, think of you as being like somehow different, not fully human in a way. And I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, but just like how we tend to think about leaders as being like this separate sort of thing. And we're not, we're all human beings, right?
I'm guilty of that too. I, love our president to death, have a great relationship to her. And I still, when I get called to our office, think, God, am I in trouble? So, I think we all can do that, think that, that they're, a leader is, just on a different level as a human, and we're really not. We're all, all equals and have so much to learn from each other.
If you are a leader and you think you're better than everyone because you're a leader, like, you're not going to be a very good leader.
Yeah, and you're probably not going to be a leader for long either.
No. Nobody wants to follow somebody like that. If people wanted to see, some of your creative pursuits, I know you're on Instagram, but can you tell folks where they can find you?
Always happy to connect on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, Eaves-MC, and also you're welcome to check out my photography website, Flash Mama Photography. It's named after two of my favorite things, being a mom and taking photos.
Your URL should have tipped me off that you have kids. Or else you have a really dysfunctional relationship with flashes. One of the two. Well, I hope you take a look at Kristi's work. She is very, very talented and a great person to follow. Great insights on social platforms. And as always, I hope that after this episode that you'll join in this conversation. I would love to hear about your creative outlets, how you find time for creativity, share your drawings, tell me the stories of your shinless protagonists, your improv classes. I would love to hear more about that. So you can do that with the hashtag HigherEdCMO. You can always find me on Twitter at Jaime Hunt IMC. That's JaimeHuntIMC. I'm on LinkedIn, kind of still hanging out on Twitter, waiting to see if it continues or not. But I have no plans to leave LinkedIn at the moment. And you can also find me on my website at thehigheredcmo.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. And as always, let's go bust some very creative silos.
Hey y'all, Zach here from Enrollify. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO with Jaime Hunt. If you like this episode, do us a huge favor and hit that follow and subscribe button below. Furthermore, if you've got just 2 minutes to spare, we would greatly appreciate you leaving a rating and a review of this show on Apple Podcasts. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, admissions, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks that are all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. But Enrollify is far more than just a podcast network. Enrollify is where higher ed comes to learn new marketing skills, discover new products and services, and find their next job. We're a growing learning community of 4,000 members, and we'd love to welcome you into the fold. You can access our free blog articles, newsletters, e-courses, and more, or purchase our master course on how to market a university with Terry Flannery at Enrollify.org. We look forward to meeting you soon and welcoming you into the community. Again, you can subscribe for free at Enrollify.org.